I think anybody who thinks that you can just create that front end experience alone and win the consumer doesn't understand retail. Like 80% of what's won or lost happens after the buy button anyway. It's the promise
Right.
of everything. And none of these chatbots are dealing with anything, kind of that really deals with much of that.
Our guest today is Sucharita Kodali, VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research, where she spent over 15 years as one of the most influential voices in retail and e-commerce. And if you've read anything about the future of retail in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, or Bloomberg, chances are she was quoted in it. She just released Forrester's 2026 Innovators Report, and she'd be one of the few analysts willing to say out loud what a lot of people in the industry are thinking but won't say on the record. Sucharita, thank you for joining us. Akash and I are really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Troy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, so we're in the havoc phase of AI in retail. Every vendor at NRF this year slapped Gen AI on whatever it is they're slinging. Anthropic dropped Opus 4.6, Sonnet 4.6 in like a 2-week window. The pace just seems relentless. But what's actually happening in retail with this? So you've written about the arc of technology markets, pivot, havoc, and stability. Did I get those right? So where are we at in retail with this AI cycle? Who's surviving? Who's going to thrive? What's your take on this?
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for pulling that piece out from the archives. It was a piece that we wrote like a long time ago. But yeah, it was basically the way that we see all technology markets evolving, which is you start with some major pivot. And by the way, this applies now, but it's applied to every type of software that we've ever covered, kind of going back
Mhm.
to e-commerce platforms or content management systems or email marketing or whatever, where you have some moment that creates essentially the promise of a new solution that can disrupt a market. And that's the pivot point. Kind of in the AI world, most recently, it was this generative AI kind of influx. And then you have a whole bunch of solution providers that'll then pile into the space, and VC money that kind of enables everybody to be flush with cash, and you have all sorts of investment in the space happening. And that's the, kind of where we are now, which is that this havoc phase where kind of it's just everybody coming at you from every different angle, big companies, small companies. And then eventually it leads to a consolidation
Mhm.
and or a shakeout. And that's the period of stability. Usually takes a few years to get to that point of stability, but we're in havoc now. And, kind of havoc is a time to experiment and kind of drive hard bargains because everybody's trying to get your share of wallet, but it is not necessarily a time to that retailers I think need to be investing tremendously because take advantage of the fact that everybody else wants you to be their kind of their proof point.
Makes sense. And are retailers, so I mean, Akash, you work in retail, supply chain, in-store retail, and AI processes like related to the workflows and things like that they're doing. Does it seem like havoc? Is this AI yet, or is this something else? We're broadly using AI in these terms. Like,
Yeah,
what are you seeing?
yeah, I think I would maybe even go a double click on saying from AI perspective, there are two or three layers of AI. It started with machine learning and then went to neural networks and then large language models. And of course, I think large language models absolutely are in what phase at this point of time. I would also say most of the stuff out there is a lot of wrappers over those five companies, that are kind of coming as applications. So I think while the machine learning, transformers as the architecture and applications of reinforcement learning It all goes back to the AlphaGo paper that DeepMind, wrote, which basically finally got people to beat a human in chess from a computer. I think some of those things have matured and are not in the havoc phase, really. I think that you are seeing good value coming out of reinforcement learning kind of applications, both in terms of robotics and retail. But when you start talking about general models, world models, large language models, and likes of that, I think that's still very, very early phase. And every few months, some of the, I would say, core models are improving so much that you don't even realize that what will be part of the core models and what will have to be built on the top for a certain industry and likes of that. You might be building something today, and tomorrow with Sonnet 4.7, it might already be part of large language models. So I think there's a lot of quick, I would say, development that's going to happen over a few years on that.
Yeah, and Sucharita, like I think when we first met, you said AI can be adding work as much as it could be reducing work. Can you explain that? What you meant by that?
Well, I think a lot of it is just that it's still not, kind of, it's still not perfect. And it is, you still have to check the work. And when I mean that, I mean, it's very specific to some of these LLM generated outputs. It's not, I think Akash has referenced, kind of AI is so many things, right? It's been around for
Right.
decades and we're
Right.
completely misappropriating the term and, calling, chat GPT as it equals AI. And it's like chat GPT is one small function within this universe of AI, which encompasses so many things. Every time you use Amazon, it is AI. Every time you've used original Google search, it is AI. Anytime you use Waze on your mobile phone, it is AI. I mean, so there's so many things that are AI, that have been AI, that are deeply embedded in all of our lives. What we're referring to, and I think that it's a very similar discussion to like years ago when people would talk about mobile, and like mobile meant so many things back then too, kind of which
Hmm.
mobile are you talking about? Are you talking about my phone, the tablet, kind of on the go, some other, mobility
Right.
device? Are you talking about it? Who's using it? Is it the consumer? Is it an associate? So it's just, kind of, we're very sloppy with language, kind of, and we're, kind of, it's dangerous when,
Right.
kind of we have these, kind of expressions. But anyway, Troy,
Yeah,
getting
and
back to what do I mean?
yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah,
like,
right.
it just creates more work because if I try to get a search result, kind of, I get a different result for Anthropic and Claude, and a different result for Perplexity, a different result on Gemini, a different result, if I go to, kind of DeepSeek or, Chatbot Arena. And, it's like I have to go check all the work, and I mean, it's
Yeah,
a lot of work. And that's what I mean that, kind of, yes, it empowers you, but, you've got to check the work and that creates extra work.
yeah. It's so on the worker side, check the work for if I'm going to create a spreadsheet or a report or something like that, I got to make sure it's right. And then on the consumer side, I know Akash and I have talked a lot about the shopping experience and where does like search and LLM come into play. There's a lot of debate. Are retailers building their own? Do they need providers to come in and build something? And what's the consumer going to use in the store? Walmart made an announcement, and I think you've said none of this stuff, as you see it, is going to beat Amazon's process as it stands right now. Do I have that right?
I think that, if the question is, is chatbot commerce going to take off? I think that that's going to be a tough one, especially, kind of in the world of Amazon. I mean, we have data that says that, people are pretty resistant to moving away from Amazon for the transactions that they're already completing on Amazon, which is a huge percent of transactions for a lot of people in the world. But, just kind of thinking about, I think anybody who thinks that, kind of, you can just create that front end experience alone and win the consumer doesn't understand retail. Like, 80% of what's won or lost happens after the buy button anyway. It's the promise
Right.
of everything from when does the product get to you? What condition is it? When it gets to you, does it stay true to what was promised to you? Did you even receive what was promised to you? And if you want to return it, how frictionless is that part of the process? And none of these chatbots are dealing with anything, kind of that really deals with much of that. There's some point solutions like, kind of facilitating returns and whatnot. But, kind of it's not going to ultimately displace the end-to-end experience that Amazon has created that is pretty far ahead of a lot of other companies.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Akash, like some of the conversations we've had about what do you do with agentic with the consumer? What are you seeing from that side of the angle? Like what do we develop for
Yeah,
retailers?
yeah. Yeah, I think, what Suchitra just said, retail is still business of bits and atoms, right? Unlike buying a ticket online, it still includes, the software part of it, but then physical movement of goods, right? So the end to end, I would say, AI-enabled retail experience will have to touch a combination of, I would say, digital agents and physical AI agents, right? Without that, it's very hard to really get an end-to-end experience. You can, of course, assess different aspects of activities, especially I think, in retail stores. I feel that you can get through a lot of the challenges of people not being very well trained, the communication between people and consumer not being rich enough, and likes of that, making sure there's right information available, and for associates, for people visiting the store. Another aspect that I'm seeing that I think is gonna start becoming very, very relevant is that I think with agentic AI, you can start getting more and more hyper localizations in the store. Most of the times the stores are run, governed, and their visual merchandising and likes of that is governed through a central process, which is common to pretty much all districts or all regions and likes of that. I think some of that is definitely helping even today to start getting to the point where a store have life of its own and can evolve as the community around that store is evolving, and the different exogenous elements around the store are evolving. The store would have the ability to kind of evolve itself with some of the agentic AI that we are talking about, what to put on the sale window, how to arrange the store for that particular community zip code, that particular environment, is something that I feel has immediate legs. But I think if we start looking at end to end experience that was being talked about, I think that will have to be a combination of digital AI agents and physical AI agents, I would say working in harmony and we getting to true autonomy. But yes, I think that's still there's still some time to get to.
I think if we pivot a little bit to another area that's near and dear to our research side is robots. So there's digital bots, but the physical robots. So Akash, you have thousands and thousands of bots deployed in the supply chain space. I'm interested in Sucharita, you and Akash. Where are we at with robots in retail and retail stores? How far away, Sucharita?
Well, in stores, I would not say that they're very far along. I mean, there are kind of some bots that have been tested and deployed and kind of put in, taken out, put in again, kind of often with grocery to, do inventory checks or clean the floors or, kind of a few use cases. But I think that it's still early. The prices probably haven't come down to a level that makes them, kind of quite affordable, to deploy at scale consistently over time. I think everything from maintenance to kind of charging them is problematic. Consumers still aren't used to being in a store environment with robots around. It does seem
Sharing
like it's
space.
more
It feels like
kind of
endless.
it makes more sense for warehouses and back office
Yeah,
at
it
this
feels
point.
like endless pilots in the stores to me, like, they're trying out single use cases, but what it feels like it has to serve multiple uses and be in a safer situation. The creepiness factors is there. Akash, we've talked about this a little bit, right? Like, it almost has to be a multi-use case type of bot, like solving multiple problems and has to be in a safe, so either at night when the store is closed or in the back room, like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, yeah. It's just there are two category of use cases for bots in the store. I think one is more kind of data collection, because that's also pretty broken in stores today. What shelf is empty, what is not, is the store in the right state? And you can, use, of course, security cameras there, but the quality of some of those and coverage is not good enough. So I think one use case of robots in stores is just understanding the state of the store so that you can do something about it. So I think that is something that is maturing as we speak, and then taking actions, right? Once you basically really understand the state of the store, how do you really take actions? And I think that's where I feel that a very specific bot is not going to work for a particular store, because you don't need hundreds of bots in a store. You need two, three, four bots in the store, and they should be able to do a set of use cases to really assist. And I think, Troy, as you said, maybe it's gonna just start with night shifts, right? And then you pass the third hurdle of saying, is consumer comfortable, shopping with bunch of bots around and likes of that. So I think data collection, I would say hardcore operations in the night, and then coexist with shoppers in the store. Those are kind of the three levels I think the transition is gonna go through. I don't, and I'm okay putting that statement out there that I don't think it's if anymore. I think it's more when. And I think those are the three layers it's gonna go.
If I can jump in, I mean, I think
Please.
that this is something I see over and over again with technology in retail, which is solutions looking for problems. And what kind of it's as if like the people who build the robots haven't talked to the CFOs and the COOs who have the actual problems. So all of you listening who are technologists, you guys need to talk to the CFOs and the COOs during their strategy sessions and really, really understand what their cost levers are that they are desperately trying to fix. And then you need to go figure out what are the solutions to those problems because 99 out of 100 times robotics is not going to be the solution. There's going to be some AI element, there's going to be some automation element, there'll be some agents that'll be useful, but build those solutions first and then you will hit home runs. But to just build things that are cool because you can, or you have a PhD who's done, kind of some dissertation on it, is not a business. So, just keep that in mind.
That's beautiful, Sucharita. That's what we do when we do these brainstorming sessions. We're trying to figure out like what actually makes sense versus testing something that's going to be rolling up and down the aisles or so I'm guessing humanoids aren't going to be rolling around the department stores anytime soon is what you're saying.
I think I completely agree. I think at the end of the day, the I haven't seen a lot of hardcore robotics company being successful. I have seen companies that are using robotics in a certain space to really solve problems more successful. And I think that's pretty much where the puck is moving as well towards. Can you solve a problem using AI and robotics is what the focus has to be, rather than building robots to solve the problem. I think given that core technology is maturing, I think you can solve more fundamental problems. But again, I think it's like using the help of software, AI, or robots to solve the problem rather than kind of building robots for a problem. I think that's a very large difference, and most of the times difference between a company stuck at a couple of $1 million ARR versus scaling to like $50, $100 million ARR.
Mhm.
So, so Sucharita, your retail clients, your retail executives that come talk to you and ask you questions, where are they most asking you questions about AI, LLMs, agentic? What are they asking you like to help solve for them or direct them? What's their big problems they're trying to solve?
Uh, I mean, it depends on almost, kind of where in the organization people sit. And the questions are really different. They're kind of strategy people who are entrusted with just sort of learning what's out there. And kind of,
Hmm.
I think that those are often some of the people that go to the conferences, and they sort of, I think, seed some of this forward thinking questions that sometimes mislead the technologist into thinking there's a bigger opportunity than there may be. Just because somebody asks a question doesn't mean that they're actually ready to invest in something. For those questions, like what is the state of, who are the most sophisticated robotics companies in retail, or kind of what do you see about kind of the robotic inventory checkers in stores, or blah blah blah. um More of the questions are really just kind of where are you seeing the ROI with technology investments. And that's a often a more brass tacks question, and kind of it gets to pretty boring topics, like you just need to get a great, user experience on your website, and make sure that you have the right inventory in the right store at the right time at the right price. So it's we just kind of layer into kind of evaluations on a lot of those basics, honestly.
The boring basics. We're back to the normal things we've always talked about in retail. So they're not coming to you saying, "What do I do about this latest Claude release? What are my workers going to do? Are we all going to have jobs?" They're not getting those existential questions in with you, huh?
Well, some of them, I mean, there are questions about how do I get my data in order for the answer engines, but that's not, I mean, the average large publicly traded retailer is going to have thousands of employees.
Right.
Most of the employees are not focused on, kind of getting my data right for an answer engine. It's going to be like a small number of people who maybe sit in the marketing organization or the strategy organization who, kind of need to think through that. But that doesn't really kind of affect the store operator, or kind of the person who's buying the inventory.
Right, right. Well, so Sucharita, one thing I wanted to ask you is something that after all the shows, I'm sure you went to them all in January, something that's either overhyped and sort of annoying, or maybe something that nobody's talking about that you're thinking, why isn't this a bigger attention seeker in the retail space? Either of those. What do you got for us?
I think that, I mean, certainly I think that there continues to be a lot of talk about generative AI. There's, kind of a lot of hype around, agentic. We talked about it even on this call. But it's, I think that the big question is what, kind of where is there that they're there, and what kind of what are the use cases that make the most sense. I think that what we just don't know is we see so many hype cycles. I mean, we just came out of some big ones with NFTs and the metaverse and whatnot. So I think that people are rightfully concerned that, kind of are some of these AI solutions are, kind of, are they really here for the long term, or are they just the next NFT?
That's right. I think, and then Akash, we've talked a lot about agentic, um, and where it applies, both from a retail associate standpoint. How can they search? So I asked Sucharita what's hype and what's not, but what are you seeing that's not hype that's around the corner? Maybe a year away
Yeah,
or
I think what I think hype is that everything gonna be changed. I think what's real, and I think everybody should be focusing on, is how do you incorporate a certain level of intelligence in each small step of the process, rather than really kind of thinking about are we going to just change everything tomorrow and pretty much have a workflow in a company, right, in a retail company completely led by AI? I think that's there's still time to kind of get to that. But I think there are real things, small real things that you can add intelligence to, right? And have right amount of collaboration with your set of people in every step of the process to get meaningful impacts. The at least to me right now, one good thing about LLM is it's making more sophisticated aspects of AI, which is reinforcement learning, the transformer architecture, the aspect of that accessible to common people by accelerating the language processing and having a textual conversation and likes of that. So I think I would want to, get people to leverage LLM to go and access more deeper aspects of AI that are fairly mature, to be able to take much better decisions, to be able to execute things with a lot of data and accuracy, rather than, I would say, just thinking about how does the whole company runs completely differently with using agentic AI and likes of that. At least that's how I would think about it.
Makes sense. Okay, so Sucharita, I think I heard you say fogentic. I don't know if you coined that term or not, but this has been fogentic versus agentic. This has been a great talk, and it's always great to hear your insights and your very candid assessment of where the market's at. We really appreciate you joining us today, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you.